There comes a quiet hour, just before the world fully awakens, when the heart remembers what truly matters. Not the noise, not the rush, not the endless demands of the day, but the sacred circle of family. The hands we hold, the voices that call our names, the souls entrusted to our care. It is in that tender space, between hope and worry, that we lift our eyes and bow our heads. On this Thursday, April 23rd, we gather not in fear, but in faith. Not in weakness, but in a quiet, unshakable strength that whispers, "We are not alone." For every mother who has stayed awake through the night, every father who has carried silent burdens, every child who dreams beneath uncertain skies, this prayer rises like a gentle dawn. We come seeking protection, not because we expect harm, but because love teaches us to guard what is precious. We come asking for peace, not because chaos has won, but because peace is the inheritance we claim. We ask for strength, not because we are broken, but because even the strongest hearts need renewal. And we ask for daily blessings, not because we lack, but because gratitude transforms what we already hold into something sacred. Today, let this prayer be more than words. Let it be a covering over our homes, a light in our conversations, a quiet courage in our steps. Let it remind us that family is not just where we come from. It is where love chooses to stay, grow, and endure. There is a sacred knowing that settles deep within the soul when love takes root in a family. A knowing that says these lives are bound to mine, and I would stand between them and the storm if I could. It is not born of fear, but of fierce devotion. It is the quiet promise whispered in a mother's prayer, the silent vow carried in a father's chest, the unspoken hope woven into the laughter of children. And yet, as strong as human love may be, it reaches its fullest power when it leans into something greater, something eternal, something unseen but deeply felt. That is where divine protection begins, not as a wall built from worry, but as a shield forged in faith. We do not ask for protection because we expect the world to break us. We ask because we understand its unpredictability. Life moves like shifting winds, gentle one moment, restless the next. There are days when the sun rests kindly on our shoulders, and there are nights when shadows stretch longer than our courage. In those moments, the heart does not cry out in defeat. It calls out in trust. It says, "Cover my family. Stand watch where I cannot. See what I do not see. Guard what I cannot reach." And oh, what a powerful thing it is to trust that such a covering exists. Divine protection is not always loud. It does not always arrive with thunder or announce itself with spectacle. Often it is quiet. It is the delay that kept someone from harm. It is the unexpected turn that led a loved one away from danger. It is the unseen hand that steadies a trembling heart before it falls into despair. It is the whisper that says, "Not today," when trouble comes knocking at the door. There are mothers who have felt it, when their child stepped out into the world and something within them stirred, urging a prayer before the goodbye. There are fathers who have known it, when a burden pressed heavily on their chest, yet somehow peace found its way in. There are families who have lived it, walking through storms that should have broken them, yet emerging not untouched but unshaken. This is the mystery and the miracle of divine protection. It does not promise a life free of hardship, but it assures us that we are never abandoned within it. When we speak of protection, we are not only asking for safety from physical harm. We are asking for the guarding of hearts, the shielding of minds, the preservation of spirits. For what good is a body kept safe if the soul grows weary and the mind becomes troubled? Protection in its truest sense reaches into every corner of our being. It stands at the doorway of our thoughts, filtering what enters. It rests upon our emotions, calming what trembles. It wraps around our spirits, reminding us of who we are when the world tries to tell us otherwise. There are dangers that do not announce themselves with noise. They come quietly: doubt, fear, bitterness, despair. They slip into conversation, settle into silence, and take root if left unattended. So when we pray for protection, we are asking for more than shelter. We are asking for discernment. We are asking for the wisdom to recognize what does not belong in our lives and the strength to turn away from it. And what a beautiful thing it is when a family becomes a place where such protection lives and breathes. Imagine a home where words are chosen with care, where kindness is not an occasional guest but a permanent resident. Imagine a space where each member feels seen, heard, and valued, not because they have earned it, but because love has already declared them worthy. That kind of environment does not happen by accident. It is cultivated, it is prayed over, it is protected. For sometimes the greatest threats to a family are not found outside its walls, but within them. Misunderstandings left to grow, anger left to harden, love left unspoken. Divine protection steps into those spaces, softening hearts, opening eyes, reminding each soul of what truly matters. It teaches us to pause before we speak words that cannot be taken back. It nudges us to forgive when pride tells us to hold on. It calls us back to one another when distance begins to form. In this way, protection becomes not only something we receive, but something we live out. There is also a courage that comes with trusting in divine protection. It is the courage to release control, to admit that we cannot be everywhere at once, cannot fix everything, cannot foresee every danger. And instead of letting that truth fill us with fear, we allow it to fill us with faith. We say, I will do my part. I will love, guide, teach, and care. But beyond that, I will trust that my family is held by a power greater than my own. That kind of trust does not come easily. It is built over time, through moments both small and significant. It grows in the quiet spaces of prayer, in the stillness of reflection, in the remembering of all the times we have been carried when we thought we would fall. And as it grows, it changes us. It changes the way we see the world, not as a place to fear, but as a place to walk through with confidence. It changes the way we love, not with desperation, but with assurance. It changes the way we live, not clinging tightly to what we cannot control, but holding gently, knowing that what is meant to remain will remain. There is a tenderness in this kind of protection. It does not suffocate, it shelters. It does not restrict, it reassures. It allows each member of the family to step into their own journey, to grow, to explore, to become, while still being covered in love. And perhaps that is one of its greatest gifts. For what is protection if it keeps us from living? True protection does not cage us, it frees us. It gives us the confidence to step forward, knowing that even if we stumble, we are not alone. It reminds us that we are supported, upheld, and surrounded by something that does not falter. There will be days when this truth feels distant. Days when worry rises, when fear whispers louder than faith. On those days we return to the prayer. We return not because we have forgotten, but because we need to remember. We speak the names of our loved ones. We lift them up one by one, entrusting them to a care that never sleeps. We ask for their protection, not only in the grand moments, but in the ordinary ones, in their coming and going, in their speaking and listening, in their working and resting. And in doing so, we create a rhythm, a steady, unwavering rhythm of trust. Over time, that rhythm becomes the heartbeat of the family. It echoes in the way we greet each other, in the way we support one another, in the way we face life together. It becomes a quiet assurance that no matter what comes, we are covered. Not perfectly, not without challenge, but faithfully. And so we stand in that faith. We stand not as people who have all the answers, but as people who know where to turn. We stand not as those who are never afraid, but as those who refuse to let fear have the final word. We stand as a family, held together by love, strengthened by prayer, and protected by something far greater than ourselves. And in that truth, we find peace. There is a quiet kind of strength that does not shout, does not demand attention, does not rise in thunder to prove its presence. It moves gently like a soft wind through open windows, like light slipping across the floor at dawn. This strength is called peace, And when it finds a home, both within walls and within hearts, it transforms everything it touches. Peace is not the absence of noise. It is not the denial of struggle. It is not a fragile thing that shatters at the first sign of disagreement or difficulty. No, peace is deeper than that. It is a steady presence that remains even when voices rise, even when burdens press heavily, even when life stretches us beyond what we thought we could bear. It is the quiet assurance that says we are still whole even here. Within a family, peace becomes more than a feeling, it becomes a foundation. It is the unseen thread that holds conversations together, that softens sharp words before they are spoken, that invites understanding where there could have been division. It lives in the spaces between us, in the pauses we take, in the grace we extend, in the love we choose again and again. But peace, like any sacred thing, must be nurtured. It does not grow in soil hardened by pride or watered by resentment. It does not flourish where silence is used as a weapon or where anger is allowed to roam unchecked. Peace asks something of us. It asks for humility. It asks for patience. It asks for the courage to look at one another, not as opponents in a moment of conflict, but as souls worthy of compassion. There are days when the home feels heavy, when the air is thick with unspoken words, when misunderstandings linger like shadows in the corners. In those moments, peace does not arrive on its own. It must be invited in, it must be chosen. And choosing peace is not always easy. It means pausing when everything inside you urges you to react. It means listening not to respond but to understand. It means recognizing that being right is not always more important than being kind. It means laying down the armor of ego and picking up the mantle of love. There is a quiet bravery in that, for it takes strength to soften. It takes courage to forgive. It takes wisdom to see beyond the moment and into the heart of the person standing before you. Peace within the home begins with peace within the heart. If our hearts are restless, our homes will reflect that restlessness. If our thoughts are tangled in worry, our words will carry that tension. If our spirits are unsettled, it will echo in the way we move through our relationships. And so the journey toward a peaceful home begins not with others, but within ourselves. It begins in the quiet moments when we sit with our own thoughts, when we examine what we are carrying, when we ask ourselves what we are holding on to that no longer serves us. It begins when we release the need to control everything, when we let go of grudges that have grown too heavy, when we choose to see with eyes of grace rather than judgment. And in that inner stillness, something remarkable happens. We begin to change. Our words become gentler. Our reactions become measured. Our presence becomes a place of refuge rather than tension. We bring into the home a calm that does not depend on circumstances, a steadiness that does not waver with every passing storm. There is a kind of peace that can only be described as sacred. It settles into a home like a blessing, wrapping itself around every conversation, every shared meal, every quiet evening. It does not mean that disagreements disappear or that life becomes without challenge. It means that even in the midst of those things, there is a sense of grounding, a knowing that love is stronger than any momentary discord. In such a home, voices may rise, but they do not wound. Differences may surface, but they do not divide. For there is an understanding, spoken or unspoken, that the bond shared is greater than any conflict faced. Peace teaches us to hold space for one another, to allow each person to be fully seen, fully heard, fully valued. It reminds us that every individual carries their own stories, their own struggles, their own hopes and fears. And when we recognize that, we begin to approach one another with greater compassion. We learn to ask, what might they be feeling? What might they be carrying that I cannot see? And in asking those questions, we open the door to empathy. Empathy is the language of peace. It bridges gaps that logic alone cannot cross. It softens hearts that have grown guarded. It creates connections that go deeper than surface understanding. And within a family, it becomes a powerful force. one that transforms not only how we relate to one another, but how we experience life together. There is also a rhythm to peace. It is found in the daily rituals, the simple acts that anchor us, the shared meals where laughter flows, the quiet moments of reflection, the gentle good nights and the hopeful good mornings. These small, consistent acts create a sense of stability, a feeling of safety that allows peace to take root. For peace is not built in grand gestures alone. It is cultivated in the ordinary. It is in the way we greet each other at the door, in the tone we use when we speak, in the patience we show when someone is struggling, in the forgiveness we offer when mistakes are made. These moments, though small, weave together to form the fabric of a peaceful home. And yet there will be times when that fabric is stretched thin. Times when stress enters, when challenges arise, when the weight of the world presses against the walls we have built. In those moments, peace may feel distant, like a memory rather than a reality. But it is never gone. It waits patiently, ready to be reclaimed. We reclaim it through intention, through the decision to return to love, even when it feels difficult, through the willingness to repair what has been strained, to speak what has been left unsaid, to listen where we have turned away. And in doing so, we strengthen the very foundation we stand upon. Peace within the home is not a destination we reach once and for all. It is a journey we walk every day. It is a practice, a commitment, a choice made again and again. It asks us to be mindful of what we bring into our space, not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually. It asks us to be guardians of the atmosphere we create, to ensure that it is one of warmth, of understanding, of care. For a home is more than walls and a roof. It is a living, breathing space shaped by the energy we carry, the words we speak, the love we give. And when that space is filled with peace, it becomes a sanctuary, a place where weary hearts can rest, where troubled minds can find clarity, where spirits can be renewed. It becomes a refuge from the noise of the world, a haven where each person can return to themselves and to one another. There is a beauty in that kind of home that cannot be measured or fully described. It is felt in the way people linger a little longer, in the way laughter comes more easily, in the way even silence feels comforting rather than heavy. It is seen in the eyes of those who live there, in the calm, the assurance, the quiet joy that comes from knowing they are safe, they are loved, they are at peace. And that peace does not stay contained within the home. It flows outward. It touches every life that comes into contact with it. It shapes the way we interact with the world, the way we respond to challenges, the way we extend kindness to others. It becomes a gift not only to those within the family, but to all who encounter them. For peace, once cultivated, has a way of multiplying. It spreads through words spoken with care, through actions rooted in love, through a presence that calms rather than agitates. It becomes a quiet testimony, a living example of what is possible when hearts are aligned in compassion and understanding. And so we return to the beginning, to the choice. Each day we are given the opportunity to choose peace, not as a passive state, but as an active way of living. We choose it in our thoughts, in our words, in our actions. We choose it when it is easy, and we choose it when it is hard. We choose it because we understand its power, because we know that within its gentle strength lies the ability to heal, to restore, to transform. Because we recognize that a peaceful home is not just a comfort. It is a necessity, a foundation upon which everything else is built. And as we choose it, nurture it, protect it, we create something lasting. A home where love is not only spoken but felt. A home where hearts are not only present but at rest. A home where peace is not only desired but lived. And in that living we find a kind of fulfillment that no storm can take away. A quiet, enduring, sacred peace. There is a strength that does not arrive with applause. It does not wait for recognition, nor does it announce itself with grand declarations. It rises quietly, like the sun that does not ask permission to shine. It shows up in the ordinary moments, in the unnoticed hours, in the steady rhythm of breath and being. This is the strength we carry into each day, the kind that does not depend on perfection, but on persistence. For every family, life unfolds in a series of challenges, some gentle, some fierce. There are mornings when hope feels light and easy, when laughter spills across the room like music. And there are days when burdens sit heavy on the shoulders, when uncertainty clouds the mind, when even the simplest tasks feel like mountains yet to be climbed. It is in these moments that strength reveals its true nature, not as the absence of struggle, but as the will to continue despite it. Strength is not always loud. Sometimes it is the quiet decision to get out of bed when rest still calls your name. Sometimes it is the soft whisper within that says, try again when yesterday's effort did not bring the desired result. It is the courage to face what must be faced, even when fear lingers at the edges of your heart. Within a family, this strength becomes shared. It is carried from one heart to another, passed along in words of encouragement and acts of care and the simple presence of being there. When one member feels weak, another rises a little taller. When one falters, another reaches out a steady hand. In this way, strength is not a solitary burden. It is a collective force, a bond that holds the family together through every season. There are parents who rise each day with worries they do not speak, carrying the weight of responsibility with quiet dignity. They press forward not because the path is easy, but because love demands it. There are children who face the world with questions they cannot yet answer, learning to navigate life one step at a time. There are moments when each person in their own way must find the strength to keep going. And still they do. Because strength is not something we are born with in abundance, it is something we build. It is built in the moments when we refuse to give up. It is shaped in the times when we fall and choose to rise again. It is strengthened through trials that test us, through challenges that stretch us, through experiences that remind us of what we are capable of enduring. There is a quiet wisdom in understanding that strength does not mean never feeling weak, to feel tired, to feel overwhelmed, to feel uncertain. These are not signs of failure. They are signs of humanity. They are reminders that we are living, that we are trying, that we are engaged in the work of becoming. And it is in acknowledging these feelings, rather than denying them, that true strength begins to grow. For strength is not found in pretending everything is fine when it is not. It is found in facing reality with honesty and grace. It is found in saying, this is hard, and still choosing to move forward. It is found in seeking support when needed and leaning on others when the weight becomes too much to carry alone. There is a beauty in that kind of vulnerability. It opens the door for connection. It allows others to step in, to offer comfort, to share in the journey. It reminds us that we are not meant to face life in isolation, that there is power in togetherness, in unity, in shared experience. Within the walls of a home, strength takes on many forms. It is in the patience shown during moments of frustration. It is in the understanding offered during times of misunderstanding. It is in the forgiveness extended when mistakes are made. These acts, though they may seem small, require a depth of strength that cannot be measured. For it is easy to react in anger, but it takes strength to respond with calm. It is easy to hold on to resentment, but it takes strength to let it go. It is easy to turn away, but it takes strength to stay and work through what is difficult. This kind of strength does not diminish a person. It elevates them. It transforms relationships. It deepens bonds. It creates an environment where growth is possible, where each member of the family feels supported, valued, and understood. There are also challenges that come from beyond the home, pressures from the outside world that test our resilience. Work, school, responsibilities, uncertainties, all these can weigh heavily on the mind and spirit. And yet, even in the face of these external demands, the strength cultivated within the family becomes a source of stability. It becomes a place to return to, a foundation to stand upon. When the world feels overwhelming, the home becomes a refuge. When doubts begin to creep in, the voices of loved ones remind us of our worth. When the path ahead seems unclear, the presence of family offers reassurance that we do not have to walk it alone. And in that space, strength is renewed. There is a rhythm to this renewal. It comes in the quiet moments of rest, when we allow ourselves to pause and breathe. It comes in the shared laughter that lightens heavy hearts. It comes in the simple acts of kindness that remind us of the goodness that still exists. For strength is not only about enduring, it is also about restoring. It is about recognizing when we need to step back, when we need to recharge, when we need to care for ourselves so that we can continue to care for others. It is about understanding that resilience is not built through constant strain, but through balance, through knowing when to push forward and when to rest. There is a deep power in that awareness. It allows us to move through life with intention rather than exhaustion. It helps us to sustain our efforts, to maintain our well-being, to continue showing up for ourselves and for those we love. And as we cultivate this strength, we begin to see its impact not only within our own lives, but in the lives of those around us. Children learn by example. They watch how we respond to challenges, how we handle difficulties, how we navigate uncertainty. And in watching, they learn what it means to be strong. They learn that strength is not about never falling, but about rising each time we do. They learn that it is okay to ask for help, to express their feelings, to face their fears with courage. They learn that within them lies a resilience that can carry them through whatever life may bring. This is the legacy of strength, a gift passed from one generation to the next. It is not found in material things or outward success. It is found in character, in perseverance, in the quiet determination to keep moving forward. It is found in the ability to stand firm in the face of adversity, to hold on to hope when it feels distant, to believe in the possibility of better days even when the present feels heavy. There will be moments when this strength is tested, moments when the challenges seem too great, when the obstacles feel insurmountable, when the road ahead appears uncertain. In those moments, it is easy to feel discouraged, to question our ability to continue. But even then, strength remains. It may not feel as strong as before. It may not be as visible. But it is there, waiting to be called upon, waiting to be awakened. And sometimes all it takes is a single step, a decision to try once more, a willingness to take one more breath, to make one more effort, to hold on just a little longer. And in that small act, strength begins to rise again. It grows with each step, with each effort, with each moment of perseverance. It builds upon itself, creating a foundation that becomes stronger over time. And before we know it, we find ourselves standing, not because the challenges have disappeared, but because we have become stronger in the face of them. This is the essence of strength. It is not about avoiding hardship, but about overcoming it. It is not about being unaffected, but about being resilient. It is not about never feeling fear, but about moving forward despite it. And within a family, this strength becomes a shared story, a story of endurance, of courage, of love that does not waver, a story that is written day by day, moment by moment, through every challenge faced and every victory achieved. It is a story that says we have been through storms and we are still standing. It is a story that says we may not have all the answers, but we have each other. It is a story that says no matter what comes, we will face it together. And in that togetherness, strength is multiplied. It becomes more than an individual quality. It becomes a collective force, a unifying presence that binds the family together. It becomes a source of hope, a reminder that no matter how difficult the journey may be, there is always the possibility of overcoming. So we rise each day with that strength. We carry it into our challenges, into our responsibilities, into our relationships. We nurture it, we protect it, we allow it to grow. And in doing so, we create a life not defined by the obstacles we face, but by the resilience with which we face them. A life rooted in courage. A life sustained by love, a life strengthened day by day by the quiet, enduring power within us. There is a gentle awakening that comes to the soul when gratitude finds its voice. It does not arrive in a rush, nor does it demand to be noticed. It comes softly, like the first light of morning touching the edges of the day, whispering a truth we often overlook, that even in the ordinary there is something sacred waiting to be seen. Gratitude is not reserved for grand moments alone. It does not belong only to the milestones, the victories, the celebrations that gather applause. No, gratitude lives in the quiet spaces, in the unnoticed corners of our lives. It rests in the breath we take without thinking, in the warmth of a familiar voice, in the simple presence of those we love. It is there, constant and faithful, waiting for us to recognize it. Within a family, gratitude becomes more than a feeling. It becomes a way of living. It shapes how we see one another. It softens how we speak. It deepens how we love. When gratitude takes root in the heart of a home, it transforms what might otherwise be taken for granted into something cherished. There is a power in saying thank you, not as a formality, but as a genuine expression of appreciation. It is a small phrase, but it carries great weight. It acknowledges effort, it honors presence, it affirms that what someone has done or simply who they are matters. Imagine a home where gratitude is spoken freely, where each act of kindness is recognized, where each contribution is valued, where each person feels seen. In such a place, love does not go unnoticed. It is named, it is celebrated, it is returned. Gratitude has a way of multiplying. When one person expresses it, it inspires another. It creates a cycle of appreciation that moves through the family, strengthening bonds, building trust, nurturing connection. It reminds each member that they are not alone, that what they give is received, that their presence is a gift. And yet, gratitude is not always easy. There are days when life feels heavy, when challenges overshadow blessings, when the mind becomes so focused on what is lacking that it forgets what is present. In those moments, gratitude requires intention. It asks us to pause, to look again, to shift our perspective. It asks us to see beyond the difficulty and into the quiet goodness that still exists. For even on the hardest days, there are blessings. They may not be obvious, they may not be loud, but they are there, a kind word, a helping hand, a moment of rest, a glimmer of hope. These small gifts, though easily overlooked, carry the power to change how we experience our lives. Gratitude teaches us to notice, to slow down long enough to recognize the beauty in what we might otherwise rush past, to see the value in what we already have, rather than constantly reaching for what we do not. It grounds us in the present moment, reminding us that life is happening here, now, not just in some distant future we are striving toward. Within a family, this awareness becomes transformative. It shifts the focus from expectation to appreciation. Instead of measuring what is missing, we begin to honor what is present. Instead of dwelling on imperfections, we begin to celebrate effort. Instead of taking one another for granted, we begin to hold each other with care. This shift does not mean ignoring challenges or pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing to see the fullness of life, the struggles and the blessings, the hardships and the joys, and allowing gratitude to coexist with all of it. There is a resilience in that kind of gratitude. It does not crumble under pressure. It does not disappear in difficulty. It remains steady, a quiet anchor that keeps us grounded even when circumstances feel uncertain. Gratitude also has the power to heal. There are wounds that words alone cannot mend, misunderstandings that linger, distances that grow between hearts. And yet when gratitude is introduced, something begins to change. It softens what has hardened. It opens what has closed. It reminds us of the goodness that still exists within one another. To say, "I appreciate you," can bridge a gap that seemed impossible to cross. To acknowledge, "I see what you do and it matters," can restore a sense of connection that had begun to fade. These simple expressions, when offered sincerely, carry the power to renew relationships, to rebuild trust, to bring hearts back together. Gratitude also teaches humility. It reminds us that we are not self-sufficient, that our lives are enriched by the presence and contributions of others. It invites us to recognize that we are part of something larger, that we are supported in ways both seen and unseen. In this recognition, pride begins to soften. We become more open, more receptive, more willing to give and receive. We understand that love is not a transaction, but a flow, a continuous exchange of care, of kindness, of presence. There is also a joy that comes with gratitude. It is not a loud, fleeting excitement, but a deep, steady contentment. It settles into the heart, bringing with it a sense of peace, a feeling of enoughness. It allows us to rest in what we have, to find satisfaction not in accumulation but in appreciation. This joy is contagious. It spreads through the home, touching each member of the family. It shows up in smiles, in laughter, in the way people move and speak and interact. It creates an atmosphere where positivity can thrive, where hope feels closer, where love feels abundant. And yet gratitude is not something that happens once and is complete. It is a practice. It is a choice made daily, sometimes moment by moment. It is a discipline of the heart, a commitment to seeing, to acknowledging, to appreciating. There will be days when it comes easily, when blessings seem to overflow, when gratitude rises naturally. And there will be days when it requires effort, when the heart feels heavy, when the mind resists. On those days, we return to the practice. We begin with something small, a breath, a memory, a single moment of goodness. And from that small beginning, gratitude begins to grow. It expands, reaching into other areas of our lives, illuminating what we had not seen before. Within a family, this practice can be shared. It can become part of the daily rhythm, a moment of reflection, a word of thanks, a recognition of what has been given and received. These shared expressions create a sense of unity, a collective awareness of the blessings that surround them. Children who grow up in an environment of gratitude learn to carry it with them. They learn to appreciate what they have, to value the people in their lives, to approach the world with a sense of openness and thankfulness. They learn that happiness is not found in having more, but in recognizing what is already there. This is the legacy of gratitude. It is not something that can be measured or stored, but it can be passed on. It is carried in the way we live, in the way we speak, in the way we love. It becomes a part of who we are, shaping how we experience life and how we relate to others. There is a quiet strength in gratitude. It does not deny reality, but it reframes it. It does not erase challenges, but it places them within a larger context. It reminds us that even in the midst of difficulty, there is still something to hold on to, something to be thankful for. And in that remembrance, we find hope. We find the ability to move forward, to continue, to believe that there is goodness ahead as well as behind. We find the courage to face each day with an open heart, ready to receive and to give. So we begin again each day. We open our eyes, we take a breath, we look around. And instead of rushing past what is familiar, we pause, we notice, we give thanks for the people who stand beside us, for the love that surrounds us, for the moments, both big and small, that make up the fabric of our lives. We give thanks not because everything is perfect, but because there is beauty even in imperfection. We give thanks not because we have everything we want, but because we have been given more than we often realize. And in that giving of thanks, something shifts. The heart softens, the mind clears, the spirit lifts, and life in all its complexity becomes a little brighter, a little lighter, a little more meaningful. All because we chose to see, to appreciate, to be grateful. And in that choice, we discover that blessings have been with us all along. There is a quiet thread that runs deeper than blood, deeper than shared walls and familiar names. It is not something we can hold in our hands, yet it holds us. It is not something we can always explain, yet it steadies us when explanations fail. This thread is the spiritual connection that binds a family, not only to one another, but to something greater than themselves. And when that connection is nurtured, when it is given room to breathe and grow, it becomes a wellspring of strength, of hope, of enduring faith. Faith does not always arrive fully formed. It is not handed down in perfect understanding, nor does it settle into the heart without question. It grows, it stretches, it learns to stand, sometimes on trembling ground. And within a family, this growth becomes a shared journey, a quiet unfolding of trust, of seeking, of believing even when the path ahead is not clear. There are moments in life when the world feels too vast, too uncertain, too heavy to carry alone. In those moments, the spirit reaches beyond what the eyes can see. It leans into a presence that cannot be measured, yet can be felt in the stillness, in the whisper of reassurance, in the calm that settles when chaos should have taken hold. That is where faith begins, not in certainty but in trust. Within a home, this trust becomes a living thing. It is found in the prayers spoken aloud and the ones held silently in the heart. It is present in the quiet pauses before decisions are made, in the gratitude offered at the close of the day, in the hope carried into the unknown. It does not demand perfection. It simply asks for presence, for a willingness to believe that there is something greater guiding, sustaining, and holding each life within its care. Spiritual connection is not confined to ritual, though ritual can be a doorway to it. It is not limited to specific words, though words can give it shape. It is found in the everyday moments, the way we treat one another, the compassion we extend, the integrity with which we live. It is woven into the choices we make, the values we uphold, the love we give without condition. When a family grows in faith together, something beautiful begins to take root. There is a sense of unity that goes beyond agreement. Differences may still exist, perspectives may vary, questions may arise, but there is an underlying bond that remains steady. It is the understanding that despite the variations in thought and experience, there is a shared desire to seek truth, to live with purpose, to walk a path guided by something higher than self. This shared journey requires patience, for faith does not grow at the same pace in every heart. Some may feel it strongly as a constant presence that guides their steps. Others may wrestle with it, questioning, searching, trying to understand. And both experiences are valid. Both are part of the process. A family that nurtures spiritual growth does not force belief. It invites it. It creates a space where questions can be asked without fear, where doubts can be expressed without judgment, where each person is free to explore their own understanding while still being supported by the collective faith of the whole. In this way, faith becomes not a rigid structure, but a living, breathing journey. There is a humility in this kind of connection. It acknowledges that we do not have all the answers. It recognizes that life is filled with mysteries beyond our comprehension. And instead of resisting that truth, it embraces it, finding peace not in knowing everything, but in trusting that we are held even when we do not know. This trust becomes an anchor. When storms come, and they will, it is the spiritual foundation that keeps a family from being swept away. It does not remove the waves, nor does it silence the wind, but it provides stability. It reminds each member that they are not facing the storm alone, that there is a presence greater than the storm itself. There are families who have walked through hardship, loss, uncertainty, trials that seem too great to bear, and yet they found within themselves a resilience that could not be explained by circumstance alone. It was rooted in something deeper, something unseen. It was their faith quietly sustaining them, gently guiding them forward when strength felt out of reach. Faith has a way of renewing itself in the most unexpected moments. It can rise in a simple act of kindness, in a moment of clarity, in a sense of peace that arrives without explanation. It can be found in the beauty of the world, in the connection between hearts, in the quiet assurance that despite everything, there is still goodness, still purpose, still hope. Within a family, these moments become shared experiences. They are spoken about, reflected upon, carried together. They become part of the family's story, a testament to the ways in which faith has shown up again and again in both small and significant ways. And in remembering these moments, faith is strengthened. There is also a responsibility that comes with spiritual connection. It calls us to live in alignment with the values we hold. It challenges us to act with integrity, to show compassion, to extend grace even when it is difficult. It asks us to be mindful of how we treat one another, to ensure that our actions reflect the faith we profess. For faith is not only something we believe, it is something we live. It is seen in the way we respond to others, in the choices we make, in the priorities we set. It is evident in the love we show, the forgiveness we offer, the humility we carry. And when these qualities are present within a family, they create an environment where spiritual growth can flourish. There is a quiet discipline in this growth. It requires consistency, intention, a willingness to return again and again to the practices that nurture the spirit. Whether through prayer, reflection, conversation, or simply moments of stillness, these practices create space for connection, for a deeper awareness of the presence that surrounds and sustains us. And as this awareness grows, so does our capacity for faith. We begin to trust more deeply. We begin to see more clearly. We begin to understand that faith is not about having all the answers, but about holding on to hope even when the answers are not yet revealed. Within a family, this understanding becomes a source of strength. It allows each member to face life with a sense of confidence, not in their own abilities alone, but in the knowledge that they are supported by something greater. It provides comfort in times of uncertainty, guidance in moments of decision, and peace in the midst of chaos. There is also beauty in the way faith brings perspective. It reminds us that life is more than the immediate, more than the visible. It invites us to look beyond the present moment, to consider the larger picture, to trust that even in difficulty there is purpose unfolding. This perspective can transform how a family experiences challenges. Instead of seeing obstacles as barriers, they can be seen as opportunities for growth. Instead of viewing hardship as punishment, it can be understood as part of a journey that is shaping, refining, strengthening. And in this shift, there is a sense of hope that remains, even in the darkest moments. Faith also teaches gratitude. It encourages us to recognize the blessings that surround us, to appreciate the ways in which we are cared for, to acknowledge the presence of goodness in our lives. And as gratitude grows, so does faith, each reinforcing the other, creating a cycle of awareness and appreciation. Within a family, this cycle becomes a shared rhythm. It is expressed in the way they speak, in the way they live, in the way they support one another. It creates a sense of harmony, a feeling of connection that goes beyond the surface and into the deeper layers of being. There will be times when faith feels distant, times when questions arise, when doubts surface, when the path ahead seems unclear. In those moments, it is important to remember that faith is not the absence of doubt. It is the decision to keep seeking, to keep trusting, to keep believing even when certainty is not present. And within a family, there is strength in walking through those moments together. There is comfort in knowing that others are on the journey as well, that questions can be shared, that support is available. There is a sense of unity that comes from facing uncertainty not alone, but as a collective. This is the essence of spiritual connection. It is not about perfection. It is not about having everything figured out. It is about the willingness to grow, to seek, to trust. It is about the commitment to nurture something deeper within ourselves and within our relationships. And as we do, something beautiful begins to unfold. Faith becomes not just a part of life, but the foundation upon which life is built. It becomes a guiding light, a steady presence, a source of strength that carries us through every season. Within a family, this foundation creates something lasting, a bond that cannot be easily broken, a sense of purpose that extends beyond the immediate, a connection that reaches into the depths of the soul and anchors each member in something greater than themselves. And in that connection there is peace, a quiet, steady peace that does not depend on circumstances, that does not waver with change. It is rooted in the knowledge that we are held, that we are guided, that we are part of something enduring and true. So we continue the journey. We nurture the connection. We cultivate the faith. We allow it to grow, to deepen, to expand, and in doing so, we create a life and a family grounded in something that will not fade, a life sustained by faith, a family united in spirit, a connection that endures beyond what can be seen, carried forward with hope, with trust, and with love. There is a sacred rhythm that lives within a family when unity takes its rightful place. It is not loud, not boastful, not demanding to be seen. It moves quietly like a heartbeat, steady, faithful, life-giving. And within that rhythm, love finds its truest expression. Not the fleeting kind that rises and falls with emotion, but the enduring kind that chooses to stay, to hold, to heal, even when the path becomes difficult. Unity is not sameness. It is not the erasing of differences, nor the silencing of individual voices. It is something far more powerful. It is the decision to stand together despite differences, to honor each person's uniqueness while still choosing connection. It is the understanding that love does not require perfection. It requires presence. Within a family, each soul carries its own story, different thoughts, different dreams, different ways of seeing the world. And sometimes those differences can feel like distance. They can create misunderstandings, moments of tension, spaces where silence grows heavier than words. But unity steps into those spaces, not to erase the differences, but to bridge them. It says, I may not fully understand you, but I will not turn away from you. There is a quiet strength in that kind of love. It does not insist on agreement, but it insists on respect. It does not demand that everyone walk the same path, but it ensures that no one walks alone. It creates a foundation where each member of the family can stand in their truth while still being held in the embrace of the whole. Love, in its deepest form, is a choice made daily. It is not always easy. There are days when patience runs thin, when words are spoken in haste, when emotions rise like waves too strong to hold back. In those moments, love is not found in perfection. It is found in the willingness to return to kindness after anger, to return to understanding after confusion, to return to one another after distance. This returning is the heartbeat of unity. For unity is not something that exists without effort. It is built, nurtured, protected. It requires intention, a conscious decision to prioritize connection over conflict, compassion over judgment, togetherness over division. There is a tenderness in a united family that cannot be easily described. It is felt in the way people listen to one another, not just to respond, but to truly hear. It is seen in the small gestures, the comforting touch, the reassuring glance, the quiet presence that says, "You are not alone." It is carried in the laughter that fills the room, in the shared memories that bind hearts together, in the simple joy of being in one another's company. And yet, unity does not mean the absence of struggle. There will be disagreements. There will be moments when understanding feels out of reach, when emotions cloud clarity, when the bond feels strained. But in a family rooted in love, these moments do not define the relationship. They refine it. They become opportunities to grow, to learn, to deepen the connection rather than weaken it. For every challenge faced together strengthens the bond. Every conflict resolved with care builds trust. Every moment of forgiveness expands the capacity for love. Forgiveness is a cornerstone of unity. Without it, wounds linger. Without it, distance grows. But with it, healing begins. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting, nor does it mean excusing harm. It means choosing to release the hold that pain has on the heart. It means deciding that the relationship is more valuable than the hurt, and that is no small act. It takes courage to forgive. It takes strength to let go. It takes a deep understanding of love to say, I choose us. Even now, within a family, this choice creates a space where healing is possible, where mistakes are not the end of the story, but part of the journey, where each person is allowed to grow, to change, to become better than they were before. It fosters an environment where love is not conditional but constant. There is also a responsibility that comes with unity. It asks each member to contribute, to show up, to participate, to invest in the relationship. Unity is not a passive state. It is an active commitment. It is found in the effort we make to connect, to communicate, to support one another. It is in the willingness to set aside distractions and truly be present. It is in the choice to speak words that uplift rather than tear down. It is in the act of showing care, even in the smallest of ways. These moments, though they may seem simple, are the threads that weave unity together. Over time, they create a tapestry of connection, a rich, layered expression of love that reflects the shared journey of the family. And within that tapestry, each thread matters, each person matters. There is a beauty in knowing that you belong, that you are part of something greater than yourself, that your presence adds value, that your voice is heard, that your life is intertwined with others in a way that brings meaning and depth. Unity gives that gift. It creates a sense of belonging that anchors the heart. For in a world that can often feel fragmented, uncertain, and isolating, the unity of a family becomes a refuge, a place where you can return not as who the world expects you to be, but as who you truly are. A place where love does not need to be earned, where acceptance is freely given, where connection is not dependent on perfection. And from that place, strength grows. For when a family is united, it becomes resilient. It can face challenges with a collective courage that is far greater than any individual strength. It can weather storms, endure hardships, navigate uncertainties, because it does so together. There is power in that togetherness. It amplifies hope. It multiplies joy. It softens sorrow. It reminds each member that no matter what life may bring, they are not alone in facing it. Unity also teaches us how to love beyond the family. For the way we learn to treat one another at home shapes how we move through the world. A family rooted in unity becomes a source of light, carrying that same spirit of compassion, respect, and connection into every interaction beyond its walls. It becomes an example, a living expression of what is possible when love is chosen, when differences are embraced, when connection is prioritized. And in that example, others are inspired. The impact of unity extends far beyond the home. It ripples outward, touching lives in ways that may never be fully seen. But perhaps one of the most profound aspects of unity is its endurance. It is not easily broken. It may bend under pressure. It may be tested by time and circumstance. But when it is rooted in genuine love, it holds, it adapts, it grows stronger through what it endures. There will be seasons of closeness and seasons of distance. Moments when life pulls family members in different directions, when time and responsibility create space between them. But unity remains, like an invisible thread that continues to connect, to draw hearts back together, to remind each person of where they belong. And when they return, as they often do, they find that the love has not diminished. It has waited, it has remained, it has grown in quiet ways, ready to embrace them once more. This is the gift of unity. It is not fragile, it is not fleeting. It is a steady, enduring force that carries a family through every season of life. It is built on love, sustained by effort, strengthened by forgiveness, and deepened by shared experience. And so each day we choose it. We choose to listen when it would be easier to turn away. We choose to forgive when it would be easier to hold on. We choose to love when it would be easier to withdraw. We choose unity not because it is always simple, but because it is always worth it. For in unity, we find connection. In connection, we find strength. And in that strength, we discover the true power of a family bound not just by circumstance, but by love that endures, that uplifts, that remains. A love that says, in every moment, through every challenge, across every distance, we are together, and together we will stand.